I want to welcome everyone to this meeting because we have a very strong representation from the international community. And so we want to welcome everyone here together because we are trying to achieve one nation, one world for peace, where science meets the soul of man for peace. And so we have many representations already with the Kesh Foundation TV Spaceship Institute. And we are looking to expand that very greatly because the truth is out there and it needs to be spoken. So I would like to welcome everyone to the Kesh Foundation Spaceship Institute teachings on plasma science. We are into what we call basic insight, and we're going to play some games today. Maybe you've heard of musical chairs. My name is Alexander. I am from Canada. It is March the 6th, 2022. And this is the Kesh Foundation North American Plasma Education Series. I've tried to create a pattern here because these teachings are for new knowledge seekers and for mature knowledge seekers. And in the process, we are grooming teachers, and we are also attracting potential teachers. And so each of us has a capability to learn at our own rate. And so we've broken it down into basic, intermediate, and advanced classes. And we started with teaching. We got into understanding and then knowing. And now we're trying to get some added insight. And in the process, I always want to review a few things because there is a context. And that context is hopefully relevant to the subject. Today it is musical chairs, and we want to have some fun. As we are going through the countdown, the launch to the moon on June 6, 2022, it's T-minus 91 days and counting. And in the process, we have to understand the difference between the science of physics, the science of spirituality, and the science of plasma. And where do we go from here? Because we're now learning about the universal order of creation. Maybe that's the source. But wouldn't it stand to reason that the origin of the universe would be the source? Or is the soul the source? Or does the soul come from a source? And what is the link? And how does energy travel back and forth? So we call it a maggrav. So there's a magnetical gravitational relationship. So is it backwards? Is it upside down? Or has it just vanished? And so we see that our tiny little perfect universe, that little red dot in the bottom right-hand corner, is the scale. And it's not to scale, it's probably too large already. If we were to really check out the scale, we probably wouldn't even see that red dot. It would have to be so tiny, smaller than nano, definitely, because the universe is vast. And that's what we can see. But what we can't see is uncharted. And so when you're going into uncharted skies, how do you know where you're going? And who do you follow? And so, yes, all of us are students, but even the teachers become students because If the students follow the teacher, the question is, who does the teacher follow? So all of us really have to follow the moral leader. And in the physical science, we always ask, can you hear me? Seeing is believing. So you better follow me as I fall off the flat earth. We've got to get this sorted out. Can we get elevated? And we all know that we have rough seas ahead. But we are having some progress because we're seeing that there's more to tune in. There's more to turn on. And there's less and less to hold on to so we can drop out and enjoy the creation of the universe. The creation of the universe, which exists from energy. And as such, energy has a charge. And that charge tells you the direction of motion. But since the motion is constant, then how does the charge change? So there is an attraction, a convergence, as you can see in the cover of book number 1, where we create matter. But these matters have different constituents, and we call them matter, dark matter, and antimatter. That's a plasma field. And in order to retain that plasma field, the energy has to be in motion. The energy never stops moving. So when you have two fields of plasma energy, they have to contain themselves. But then they also have to relate to other plasmas, establishing a relationship. So we all want to look good and have a nice bow tie, but we need to understand how to share the energy so that we have a beautiful universe. It's all the same. The plasma rule is always the same. The higher strength feeds the weaker strength. Sorry, Mr. Darwin. Your points of conflict are backwards. We have to understand the points of conflict and how they interact. So it's normal to have points of conflict. Why? Because if you have common fields, then they will interact. But if you don't have common fields, then they will create a barrier. And this is the unique characteristic of plasma, where it can interact or it can create a barrier. And so the proceeds of those two characteristics is what allows us to understand plasma science. Fundamentally, plasma science involves magnetical field forces, and these field forces can attract or repel. But you have to have a point of origin, and you have to have a point of destination, don't you? Because you have to come from somewhere and you have to go somewhere. And so fundamentally, we have described a two-way street. And so this two-way street has one way we call magnetical, which comes from a point of convergence of attraction repulsion forces. And a second way is the gravitational way, which comes from a convergence of repulsion and attraction forces. And so we call that natural creation. But we also have natural decay. So we find that decay and creation are actually synonyms. In other words, they mean the same thing. They just indicate a direction. So the way we create is we emit energy. So in other words, the emission is magnetical from a point which we call a maggrav. So the opposite is a gravitational energy flow, which is done through absorption into a maggrav condition. So that's the two-way street. And if you understand that, you understand how plasma science creates rays. And what are rays? We call them PM ticks. These are plasma rays that travel through the universe. And when we look into the universe and we see nothing is there. So that's the first fallacy. The fallacy is that nothing is nothing. Something is always something. And so therefore, what is it? Just because we can't see it and we can't hear it doesn't mean it's not there. It has to be there. The Keshe model of nuclear decay of the neutron shows that when a neutron breaks down into an electron-proton combination, there is an energy transfer, but it's not in balance. But science knows about the conservation of energy. So if there's a conservation of energy, where does it go? And so we find that what's missing is the release of PM ticks. And this is what we call part of the decay process. And isn't it interesting that the decay process is a part of ray creation? So we find that the motion of the ray is the creation. And so in the process of decay, which is natural, we can create a creation which is natural. It's a two-way street in the process of creation. Well, in the process of decay, there's a natural creation of the PM ticks through the natural decay. And this is the process of decay. And so we can't see this, we can't understand it, and there's energies that are missing. And so the things that are kind of gluing everything together is a bond. And so we can't see it and we can't hear it. So let's just fudge it. And this is how we've been operating. And assuming that there is a bonding, we don't know how to describe it. We don't know how to measure it. So we just fudge it. And that's been our way of life. But now we understand that there is a covalent bond, but we don't know how it works or we don't know how it means. And I'm not just talking about the layman, I'm also talking about the professors, because we can't see it and we can't touch it, but we know that it's there. And we have to understand the principles of why it's there and what is it doing. So fundamentally, if we have a process of creation where the neutron breaks up into an electron-proton combination, and that is part of creation. And in the process of creation, we create a PM tick. So that transaction of energy is creation. But there's an opposite field. And in that opposite field, there's another creation where the neutron decays into an electron-proton combination. And it too creates a PM tick. And so there's a relationship between the creation and the decay. And in order to interact, there has to be a bond. And because this bond is a two-way street, this is a covalent bond. So there's a sharing of energy back and forth. And it has to go back and forth because the energy is constantly in motion. It doesn't stop. So now we understand the basis of the cups of life. And we introduced the cups of life 2 years ago because of the pandemic. But we never called them the cups of the pandemic. They were always the cups of life. And they are more important now than ever because they represent two things. One is a peace of mind that we can create a magnetical field and a gravitational field within the cup that will help us with some of the issues that we have. And these issues involve an emotional characteristic and a physical characteristic. And so we've created more cups. And so if we want to focus on one particular point and keep the batches at least 1 meter apart when you make them, but don't just make one batch, keep making more and share with others, because that energy has a covalent bond to your energy source. And so this is how your wishes will come true. We call it the peace dome. And this is real. And we know that we are creating things inside these cups, and they come from somewhere. We don't know where they come from, but they do come. So we don't know what point they come. So what we have is a form of materialization where we've created a zinc gas and a copper gas and a CO2 gas and a calcium gas. And we've also created amino acid, call it an amino acid gas. And we also have water, call it a water gas. There's a lot going on. And now that we've created a magnetical gravitational concept, we can now add the soul. And so we find that when we add even more cups that have to do with our environment, which we call the earth, and the interaction of our environment, which we call the inertia, the magnetical gravitational fields prevail. And the soul is in each and every field. And collectively, they develop a magnetical gravitational field force. And as such, collectively, they have a soul. We all like to watch our sports games. So we know that the team is constructed of individual players. And we really enjoy it when they play together as a team, because then something special, something magical happens, where 1 and 1 is more than just the sum of the players. 1 and 1 is more than 2. And so we find that we, as a physical being, we have cells, and these cells multiply. But strangely enough, these cells multiply through division. So the cellular division, which sounds like a decay, is part of creation. But it has to be a creation from something. So something has to contribute. So there has to be a decay. And in the process of that decay, there's another creation. And so we call that love. That is the PM6 fudge factor that makes all this possible. And the truckers around the world have helped us bring this to general awareness. And they were using radar love, and we're using plasma love. It's basically the same thing. When forces come together, there's an interaction. So we need this interaction because in order for us to maintain our self, we have to enhance ourselves. And so the universe provides this energy and it comes together, not just in 2 dimensions, the X and Y axis, but in 3 dimensions, including the Z axis. And so we harvest this energy into ourselves. And as a result of that, we become the gravitational point. And so through our gravitational activity, we conduct universal harvesting. Some of us just don't understand that. And so rather than harvesting from the universe, we harvest from other souls. And although the universal laws are obeyed by the souls, the physical laws are exposed. And as such, without any moral, shall we say, backbone, without any moral criteria, then the consumption of energy and the harvesting of energy from others, which we call loosh harvesting, yes, it does enhance the self. However, there's a penalty because this energy has no soul. And so to retain this energy requires consumption of energy. So fundamentally, the harvesting of energy through the process of loosh harvesting is actually self-consumption. And so now we're going to find out what is the difference between being at the top of the pyramid or being at the bottom of the pyramid, because we all want to achieve the greater oneness. And so the implication is that the source is the point of the greater oneness, but it's if you're looking at it from the top. But if you look at it from the side, maybe the top of the pyramid is the point of greater oneness. And so this confusion continues because we have pyramids as form artifacts all around the world. And science has not been able to explain how they work. But I think we all know now that these were monuments to energy creation and energy transaction. You could say that the art of this energy creation was lost. It's lost in history. And it continues to get lost in history. And that's fine. And let's look at what is the problem with this history. The problem is that it's a two-way street. The attraction and repulsion is literally a residue from a point of convergence. And from that point of convergence, there is a divergence. So the point is the maggraph. The point is where each one becomes an independent variable. The point is where each one can reach one, because there's a dependency on the other point. So the point is that we understand the interdependence of the universe. It is through this interdependence that we teach one. And how do you teach? The easiest way and most effective way is through an emotional transformation. An emotional transformation from what to what? So, from one universe to one planet. And if you have one planet, then you have one nation. And we are all patriots. And we're all patriots of our nation. which nation, and it doesn't matter, because fundamentally we transmit energy around this planet and we see it. So we have a verification point. And this energy can transition through different levels. That's our validation point. And we can transmute this energy. And we know that because we have an existence and we are at that point of existence. And so that's our confirmation. But when we see that confirmation, what we don't see is the balance of the Maggrav field, because the balanced Maggrav field is invisible. So the difference between this visible confirmation and this invisible balanced field is the crossover point. And when we don't cross over that limits our soul. Now, did we say which soul? Well, we have a scientific soul, and we have a relationship there. And we have a spiritual soul, and we have a relationship there. And so the plasma science has a relationship to both of these souls. And it is through this plasma science that we add to the knowledge. So if we understand these relationships, then we can understand what is meant by principal matter. And so the principal matter is the convergence of the PM ticks into a Maggrav state. The PM ticks being magnetical, the Maggrav state being gravitational. The energy transaction in the process depends on the environment. And so if we are in a physical environment, then we have an interaction with that physical environment, which we call inertia. The inertia being the field interaction between the plasma field and the physical field. And so part of this field is the precursor, which is the plasma, and the convergence, which is the matter. And so we have the principal matter and the transition matter, and then we have the convergence of the matter. And so all of this, and when we say all of this, is unique. Each and every matter is unique. So what we have is a blend. And this blend is the dilution of the force fields. And so how these force fields blend is the difference in the intensity, is the difference in the pressure behind the divergence or convergence. From what to what? So we call that susceptibility. And we created a GANS material. And in this bottle, we took away the cup that created this GANS, and we just had the GANS. And there's a hole in the GANS. Is there a soul in that hole? Look closely. It's gone. So when we talk about the point of conflict, two opposing forces, it's not just armies. It's not just energy. They are interests, but there's something we call conflict of interest. And so it's not tangible, but the repercussions are certainly tangible. And this is why we have to follow the moral leader, because the moral leaders do not have conflict of interest. they could cross over through this vanishing point and settle the conflict. There is no conflict. There's only energy in motion. Let's play a little game, shall we? Let's have some fun. Let's crank up the music and let's bring in some musical chairs. And let's have a game. And you all know this game, I'm pretty sure. Let's have 8 people and 8 chairs. And we're going to play a game where people have to get out of the chair and they have to dance around all the chairs. So all the chairs are in the middle in a circle, and the people are going to dance around. And when the music stops, 7 remain. 1 has to go. Well, how do we do that? Well, we remove the chair. That's how we did that. Okay. So what happens if we remove another chair and do this again? It's a game, right? We're playing a game. So let's go around in a circle and let's remove a chair. And when the music stops, grab a chair. And if you can't grab a chair, sorry, you have to go. You're gone. Let's do this again. It's so much fun, right? For the 5 remaining. And which of the 5 will be remaining? Ooh, can you feel the pressure? So here goes the music. Let's go around. Let's take out 1 chair. Oh, there we go. The music stops. 5 sit down. 1's got to go. Well, I think you're seeing the pattern now. So, and we're all having a lot of fun, especially the 5 remaining. So after going around, now there's 4. 1's got to go. Well, he's not having as much fun anymore. He was having fun up until now. So there's only 4 remaining. Let's do this again. Another one gone. Another one bites the dust. There's 3 remaining. Getting pretty tense. Let's do it once more. There's only 2 now. The focal point, 2 fields, 2 chairs, 2 people, and a point of conflict. Let the music play. And the winner, and still champion, for this game anyway, we have a winner. When we have a winner, we have 7 losers. Are you having fun? Was that fun? It was fun for the winner. Why are we playing this game? Well, because that game is totally artificial. We can play that game in a physical environment on this planet, and we can see that there's something wrong. Because when we stretch the flux lines by lifting a rock, as we discussed in a previous class, there's nothing there underneath the rock. And so when the music stops, we drop the rock. It goes back down to the earth. So those who are playing the musical chairs and being the losers had to go. But they went the wrong way. They went out. Look at the rock. The rock goes in. And then when you have a bunch of rocks and a bunch of people holding a bunch of rocks, they all stretch the flux lines together. And when they all let go, they all come back down to the center. And so this is how we create waves. So when we're playing the musical chairs, we go around the chairs in a circle. And the loser goes out. What happens if the loser goes in? What happens if, for instance, we know that by gradient, that energy will flow from the higher to the lower. This is what we call terracing. And so the connection is by gravity, right? Just like the rock goes in the direction of the gravity. But we can go from one field to another without gravity. We can go by, say, capillary effect. If we're siphoning water, we can create a water bridge. That water bridge is like a gradient. But how do you know which way it's flowing? So there has to be an inflow and there has to be an outflow. So now we can take that connection and make sense of it. Because to maintain that connection, the energy has to flow. You can't stop the energy. If the energy doesn't flow, then there's no energy. So to keep it flowing, you can't just have the energy go out. You have to have more energy come in. Okay, so the energy has to go in for the energy to flow out. Okay, so if we have these 8 rotating fields, okay, and let's forget the chairs. Let's just look at the fields. And so we're going to play musical chairs, but instead of tossing one out, we're going to keep all the players together. And we're going to move from an outer field to an inner field. And the loser is going to have to go in again. So here we have 3 rotating fields. The outer field is now empty because it was able to keep all 8 players. The next field has 7 players. These are the 7 winners. The loser has to go to the next layer. So we have 7 on the second layer and only 1 on the third layer. So we still have all 8 players, right? So let's play the music and do this again. Okay, so the 7th layer is gone. Now we have the 6th layer. And on this 6th layer, we can only have 6 players. Those 6 players are the 6 winners. The losers have to go to the next layer. So now we have 2 losers. They've gone down 1 layer. So we have 2 losers and 6 winners. Still 8 players. Let's do this again. So there are no players on the 6th field, but on the 5th field, well, we have 5 players. So that means we have 3 losers. Well, these 3 losers have to go now to the lower field. Let's do this one more time. We have a problem. On this fourth field, we have 4 players. These 4 players are the 4 winners. So we have 4 winners and we have 4 losers. Well, the next field down can only hold 3 players. So the next field down has the 3 losers. Well, there's one more loser. Well, he has to go down another layer. So we have a fourth field with 4 players. We have an inner field with 3 players and another field inside that with 1 player. Still have a total of 8 players. Let's do this one more time. We have now 3 players left on this third field. We have 5 losers. So these 5 losers now have to go to an inner field. And we had 3 there before. Well, we have a problem, fellas. We have a problem. We can only put 2 on that next field. We have 3 left over. We can only put 1 on that field. Where do they go? What do we do now? We got a problem. This game is not as much fun as the other game, is it? Because now we've got some pressure. So, is that realistic? Well, energy is always in motion. And what we're looking at is the energy motion within a plasma field. To maintain that plasma field, it has to be gravitation. And as we get closer to the center, we found that we get closer to the stronger part of the field. But in reality, there are another 8 players coming into the game. Now we have 16 players. And they're going to start playing this game. Well, we're surrounded. So where are we going to go now? This is a problem. So this is looking at it from the top. Let's look at it from the side. So as we go layer by layer, we now have a field flow. And we see that each layer is a wave. And it's not just good enough to have the connection, because each connection is stronger. Right? Because you have more players congregating in the center, and you have more players coming in. You started with 8, now you have 16. They're going to be playing. And you can bet your bottom dollar there's going to be another 8 players after that. And that 16 is going to be 24. And then it's going to be 36. And when you total up the space, there's not enough space. So what you're finding is that the strength of the flow is getting stronger and stronger as it gets to the center. Where are you going to go? Well, we have a point of conflict. We have 8 players in the middle playing this game, and they can't go anywhere. And we have 8 more players coming in, and they're putting on pressure. And after that, it's going to be another 8 players putting on more pressure. So someone's going to have to make a decision here. So the thing is that when the plasma fields come together, when you're looking at these waves, you're just looking at the caps of the waves, because what's in between is the trough. And that's how you differentiate the wave. Okay. But the energy flows both ways. So in order for the energy to flow, there has to be a change in the field. So when we're looking at it from the top, we see the two infinity loops interacting, but at the point of interaction, they flip 90 degrees. So now you have a conflict of choices. You can either consume yourself, or you can share, or you could just pass the energy, right? So you can either lose the energy, enhance the energy, or just pass the energy. And so this energy, by changing dimension, is what we call transmutation. And conflict resolution is done through this transmutation. So by taking energy gravitationally, we increase the mass. By giving energy magnetically, we increase the creation. If we're not giving or taking in that dimension, we have a balance, which we call a maggraph. We didn't say which dimension. We have two dimensions here, right? We have a transmission dimension of rotation, that's the x-axis. And then when we go from one field to the other, and we're going from the outside field to the center point, that's a transition. We call that the y-axis. It reflects polarity. But there's a crossover point in order to be able to change this dimension. But when we look at from the top down, we see the circle. We see that when we try and complete the circle, we can only do this with respect to the diameter 3 and a bit times. We have to fudge something. We have to really, really fudge it. So this is where we're having trouble with our target practice, right? Because we're having a physical game, but we're starting to feel the pressure. And we're starting to understand that there are other geometries. And so where's that going? Well, let's examine it. We talked about surface to volume ratios in our basic classes. So when we look at the relationship of pi, which is 3.14 plus, whatever, onto infinity, there's a relationship of a perimeter of a circle. So we take the radius, which is the point at the center of the circle, to the outside of the circle. That's the radius. And if we take two radii, that's equal to 1 diameter. And we multiply by pi, so we find out what the perimeter is. Now to check the area of the circle, we change the formula slightly, and we take the radius and we multiply it by itself. So whatever the size of the circle is, it doesn't matter. The formula is the same. So it's the radius squared times pi. That's the area of the circle. That's one dimension. The perimeter is one dimension. the area is 2 dimensions. If we want to introduce the z-axis, we have to go through 3 dimensions. So we can see that the formula changes again. The difference between the area of a circle and the surface of the sphere is 4 times. 4 pi r squared. But if we want to check the volume of the sphere, the area is length times width squared. The volume is length times width times depth cubed, pi r cubed. And the volume is 4/3 times pi r cubed. And so you can see that we have to fudge things every which way, whether we're working in 2 dimensions or 3 dimensions, right? Because this is the transmutation from the 2 fields to the 3rd field, the z-axis. This is our plasma. This is at the core where we maintain our position. And one plasma interacts with another plasma, and it is the relationship of these 2 plasmas that creates a dynamic plasma. And because energy cannot be contained or stopped, in order for it to be contained, we can do that as long as it's still in motion. So we can keep that motion within 1 plasma. We can keep that motion in 2 plasmas. Oh, we can keep that in 3 plasmas. And whether or not we have a visible or a non-visible energy is determined by susceptibility. And whether we have a depletion or an increase in energy is dependent by susceptibility. So 1 plus 1 is more than 2. So when 2 plasmas comes together, there's a synergy. Well, how can there be a synergy if there is decay? Because a decay has less energy. So now we understand where the relationship reference points come together. And now we understand how we can go through various ranges. And now we understand what it means by transcendence, because the transcendence means that when we have this rotating field and we can't play this game anymore because we're jammed up in the middle, so we have to deflect this energy through another dimension. But it's not just 2 dimensions. It's not just a flat circle. We don't live on a flat earth. We live on a round earth. And we all live here, and more of us are coming. So more of us are coming to this game. And it's not just this game. There are millions of games throughout the universe, and they all do the same thing. People coming to play, and they coming together in various pressure fields. And so if these pressure fields come together at a point of convergence, and if this point of convergence is in one reality, then we have a problem. When this convergence comes in the physical reality, we call that nuclear science. So we have to understand that when we were playing our musical chairs, we were casting out the losers, throwing them away, so to speak. Well, if you are playing in this universe, and if you are throwing something away, where exactly is this away? Where do you throw it? Where does it go? And if more players are coming into the game, where do they come from? And so this is the key to understand the difference between the physical matter state and the plasmatic matter state, right? Because we keep asking, where's it going and where's it coming from? Because our reference is the touching and the seeing. Whatever else is there, it don't matter. So now we have to understand that there are dominant matter states. And so there's universal beings who have a plasma state and maybe or maybe not transcend into the physical state. And we have physical beings who maybe or maybe not transcend into plasma states. But in order to be able to move between one state or another state, there has to be a common denominator. And so that common denominator is the energy in motion. And so to create a plasma state, the energy in motion has to give and take. And when you give and take from yourself, that's a binding energy. But if you give and take with another, that's a flowing energy. So when we look in the rest of the universe, the energy is always flowing. And the energy is generic energy. But we didn't say what the flavor of the energy is. We didn't say what the strength of the energy is. What kind of energy? None of these things were defined. They are just various energies. And because they're all different, they contribute to the spice of life, right? And so for us, we have dream energies, and we have the spirit energies, and we have the soul energies. These are all different energies. And so when we look at the basic energy parceling unit, and we compare that to water, and water is the universal solvent on this planet, and we see the divergence of the two elements, hydrogen and oxygen, the oxygen being much stronger than the hydrogen, 8 times in fact. And so to create water, we can take 2 hydrogens and 1 oxygen, and we can create a Magravs condition of water. So the 2 hydrogens plus the 1 oxygen equals 10, which is an order of magnitude. And the balance of the magnetical gravitational field force of the water is a Magravs. And a water droplet is round. But being a universal solvent, it can give energy. And so when we give energy, which is a hydrogen in motion, that hydrogen being a positive charge, we don't know where it's going. We can't even see it. We can see the hydroxyl, which is what's left. And that hydroxyl is 1 hydrogen and 1 oxygen. And so it has a negative charge. It wants to give. And it's giving to a lot of things because it is a universal solvent. The hydrogen that was sheared off, we don't know where it's going. We haven't defined it. We haven't given it context. It's gone. And it keeps on going because energy is always in motion. And we don't know where it goes. But then we have rain. Where does that come from? Rain is water. Rain comes as a raindrop. And where does it come from? It comes from the sky. Where exactly in the sky does it come from? I don't know. But here's what I do know. When that rain comes, it comes in the center of this wave pattern. So what you're looking here is the surface of water with many, many raindrops. And each raindrop comes absolutely smack dab in the center of the circle. Talk about target practice. It never misses. Every time the raindrop falls, it falls in the center of that circle. And it creates a wave. And right in the middle of those waves is the raindrop, each and every time. Can't miss, can't miss. It's amazing. But there's a difference. Where the raindrop falls has the biggest wave. So where the raindrop comes in has the biggest wave, and as the waves go out, the energy is less and less and less and less. So this is the opposite of our game of musical chairs. So with the problem with the musical chairs is we don't know where it goes to. And with the raindrops, we don't know where it comes from. Well, it goes somewhere, right? It goes somewhere, we don't know where. But what we do know is that in the hydroxyl, the higher strength feeds the lower strength. So on that dimension, right, we have a magnetical gravitational relationship, but we also have a direction of flow. And when we take three fields together all the same, we don't see the connection, but there must be a connection because there has to be something there. I can't bring these three magnets any closer together because there's a force of repulsion in between, but I don't see it. There's nothing there. And if I want to bring those three together, I have to change dimensions. I have to have a dimension of transmission, and I have to have a dimension of transition. Then I can bring the two together. And the one in the center that is standing vertically, well, is it positive or is it negative? Well, which way is it going? So the thing is that if the gravitational is feeding the magnetical, what feeds the gravitational? The relationship of the gravitational to magnetical has to be on the same dimension in order for it to be a relationship. But if the gravitational is following the rule where the gravitational has the higher energy, then that is feeding the magnetical, which by rule is the lower energy. What feeds the gravitational? So you find that the magnetical feeds the gravitational, but it has to do that on a different dimension. So now we understand that when we have three magnets on the left, all in the same field, all in the same polarity, that's repulsion. So if we flip one, now we create attraction. So within this dimension, we know that it's a two-way street. And so in this picture on the left, where there is a field force between each of the pairs of magnets. The representation of three positive fields is the same when we just flip one. The energy of this one magnet in physicality is equal to the three plasma dimensions that are non-visible. So we'll have one positive and three negatives. And we simply did that by flipping the pole, and we're still in the same dimension. But now we have a second dimension, and there's no way to flip it. So we just turn it like a key. And this is the same thing that happens in our musical chairs. We come to a point and there's nowhere to go. We can't go around, and we can't go back and forth. So we have to go somewhere else. We have to disappear. So now we see that where we had the verification point 2, which is our transmission, and our validation point from, which is our transition, and our point of existence, which is the transmutation, in that dimension, that is our confirmation dimension. But what it creates is a maggrav, which is invisible. So what we see is the confirmation. We don't see the maggrav. And the crossover transmutation is the crossover of the vanishing point, where we go from a plasmatic reality to a physical reality. These realities are real in real time, simultaneously. And so our failure to understand this is our limitation. And that limitation affects our soul. So now we see that when we have one plasma feeding another plasma has to feed the first plasma. And so if it's only taking into account these two plasmas, then there is a crossover point, and it goes into different dimensions. So we find that one is gravitational, one is magnetical, and one is the transmutation of the two fields, where there's a relationship, magnetical or gravitational, and we're not saying which, right? When you look at what we call target practice, yeah, we create a bullseye. When we hit the bullseye or we create a goal, this is how we score. And who has the highest score is judged the winner, right? But if we can't bring these two together, then they deflect. This is all a process of what we call waking up. And our cells are doing that quite nicely, thank you, because there's over 70 trillion cells in our body, and each one of those cells knows if it's a toe, or if it's a nose, or if it's an eyebrow or an ear, and it doesn't miss. It can't miss. It's perfect. And that is the transmutation from the dynamic transfer state, as it's represented by the universal cup, into our physical destination state, as it's represented by our stacker cups. This is the target practice that we all go through. And this target practice is a two-way street. So let's review. So when we're looking in our physicality, we see that our physicality has a maintenance that is created from energy. And these energies follow paths. And these paths travel through space. So from space, they come in. From in, they go out. While they're in, they have to go around. And if they can't come in, maybe they just go straight on through. And so depending on how we approach these space energies is what we call susceptibility. And if that energy is coming exclusively gravitationally, so the energy is coming in and more in. When it comes in, it is gravitational. Gravitational means it's attracted. And if it's attracted, can it be absorbed? And if it is absorbed, then it becomes more gravitational. So that binding energy is the susceptibility in this particular example. But if from this mag-grav condition, the energy goes out, what we call an elevating energy path. So it can go out and it can go more out. How far out can it go? And where does it go from? So it's going to go from the magnetic horizon, and it's going to go through repulsion. And the product of repulsion is what we call emission. How out does it go? How much more out does it go? Is all dependent on susceptibility. We can do both. It can come in and come more in. And it can go out and it can go more out. So whether it comes in or goes out, we said that's susceptibility. And if it does both equally, then that plasma condition becomes catalytic. It shares the energy. But this is all in one dimension. The physical reality. The physical reality is 3 dimensions, but the dimension of reality is physical. If the energy keeps coming in more and more and more, where does it go? Where does it go? It has to go somewhere. You can't stop it. And more is coming in. And so that energy disappears. Or does it? Or does it convert into magnetic? Does the gravitational energy convert into magnetic? And can it do that on the same dimension? We've seen by the game of the musical chairs that we cannot come in on the same dimension. We have to go. We have to go somewhere. I mean, we really have to leave. So we have to disappear. So now we understand how our emotion is interacting, because our emotion is the link between the emotion of the past and the emotion of the future. That's why it's called the emotion of presence. And it is independent. However, it is interdependent on others. And it is invisible. It is plasmatic. But there is a transformation that goes from the emotion of the soul of the man and the emotion of the soul of the body. So there is a magnetical gravitational relationship. So somehow, some way, we have to go through this transformation between the physical state and the plasma state. And because it's a two-way street, we have to go from the plasma state to the physical state. And so this gives us different opportunities, different points of view. So now we better understand the soul sequencing, because the soul of the sun plus the soul of the earth is what attracts the soul of the man. 1 and 1 is more than 2. And therefore the soul of the earth plus the soul of the man attracts the soul of the body. 1 and 1 is more than 2. Now we have the soul of the earth plus the soul of the body manifests the physicality of the body. 1 and 1 is more than 2. What? The physicality of the body is more than 2? I thought the physicality of the body was the weakest. Well, it is in terms of energy retention. But where does the energy go? So this is why we define manifestation differently. It's based on our perception, the stacker versus the universal reality. Two fields, when they come together, they form another. That is the manifestation. And it's the plasma feeding that leads to this manifestation. So this manifestation may be non-tangible or tangible, non-visible or visible, plasmatic or physical. But there is a plasma reality always, and sometimes there's a physical reality. So the manifestation of either reality is always a form artifact, and that includes the emotion of presence, because all of this is a form artifact of energy in motion. And so we want to get back to normal, but we don't really know what normal is. So when we look at the pyramid, we find that the majority is normal. And the normal seeks freedom and emancipation. And the universe is normal. And the earth seeks freedom and emancipation. That's what's normal. The majority is normal. And so we find that those who have been misguided and want to get back on track, the Keshe Foundation has offered the Vision Enhancement Unit for the benefit of the American military to recover from PTSD. This will soothe the pain of being a witness to the moral blockages. It's our gift. And so our gift is not just for the military, but it's for everybody, because we're transcending now the limitations of science, and it is very important. So when someone asks you what is plasma, tell them it's a kind of energy state. And there are many energy states. So it isn't just that it's man-made, it's the role of man that makes the difference. And we're demonstrating this with the vertical and horizontal enhancement units as well. They have purposes as well. So what we're trying to do is create a moral path for all of us to follow, to understand the difference by being a witness to self-consumption, which is the binding of energy. And this binding is done at the expense of others. That's called abuse. And it's only possible when this morality is missing. And so when we listen to the explosions, it's the convergence of energy with nowhere to go. And when we introduce the universal community and we find that the interaction is benevolent, So why double cross? Because that's your eternal burden. You have to maintain that. That's not the way the universe works. Creation involves morality. In order to have morality, you have to have compassion. Compassion for your fellow man. And then the courage to stand up for it. This all constitutes the ethos of the universe, and is what constitutes creation. Creation in plasma reality or creation in physical reality, it really doesn't matter. It all has to do with an emotional transformation that we're all going through, where we understand that there's a magnetical aspect and there's a gravitational aspect. There's a precursor and there's a post amino acid, an aminogen and a post amino acid, and a carbogen and a carbon element, all different. And this is what dreams are made from. And we make these dreams. And we understand our dreams better now because we're crossing the bridge of knowledge. And more of us are crossing the bridge of knowledge because it's gravitational. It's gravitational. It's converging. And it's increasing in strength. And we get to play. And so we make the connection. And this connection is, the connection that's missing is the understanding that our earth space is part of the inner space. And there is an outer space. And this outer space is different from inner space. So there is a plasmagen state, which is a precursor for a physical state. So we understand that when we become the winners of our game of musical chairs, and if we find that the morality is the missing ingredient, then the losers all get discarded. And so that's why the beauty is only in the eyes of the beholder. So if you can behold the beauty, then you can see where the three musketeers have made a mistake. With wars, competitions, and trophies, they are all witnesses to the vanishing point, because there's new news. And to understand this new news, you have to go beyond this vanishing point to understand that there's a difference between dematerialization and materialization, as witnessed with the universal body enhancement units. So what we see is, and what we've discussed today, is how...
Okay. Por eso es que...
What we've discussed today is how the flying saucers are working and where they are working. They are working in inner space. The plasma science is in outer space. There are relationships, there are crossover points, there's visibility and there's invisibility. And the Universal Council is the connector. And we didn't say where. There's no reference point here as to where. It doesn't matter. They connect the to and the from. Wherever they are, that is where they are. And that is the universal connection. It doesn't have to be side-by-side connection. It can be a contiguous connection. And this is a contiguous connection between the inner space and the outer space. So what does that mean? There's a universal connection. So we say the physical reality to the elemental state, hydrogen, oxygen, carbon, nitrogen, the physical reality from nanostate. That's one connection, physical to physical. Another connection, physical reality, the GANs, to the plasma reality from our dream state. Our bodies consist of GANs, and when we go to sleep at night, we dream. The dreaming is in the plasma state. The sleeping is in the physical state. One connection. Another connection is the plasma reality to the emotional state, from the plasma reality, from the soul state. The emotional state connected to the soul state plasmatically. Another connection. If you understand these three connections, where we only had the one connection from our conventional teaching, you're born and you die, and the one who gathers the most toys in between wins. This ain't rocket science. For the international community, you don't know the word ain't? Ain't is an American slang short for ain't no, as in this ain't no rocket science. This is the Keshe Foundation Spaceship Institute Plasma Science. We're calling all Earth patriots, both near and far. Sign the World Peace Treaty. Sign it with a pen. Sign it with your heart. Sign it with your soul. Sign it as if you mean it. And you will experience the physical and emotional transformation. This crossover point, which is the universal moral denominator, as we all try and gain insight into the universal language of freedom. This is why plasma science needs to be delivered in exchange for peace on Earth. Welcome to the outer space age. That's the end of the lesson. Thank you very, very much for allowing me to present. Over to you, Mark.
Well, thank you, Alex. It was quite a wide teaching, I'd say. I've written down a couple questions. I don't know if anyone else would like to open their mic and perhaps ask a question. Before we do that, we always ask if anyone's here for the first time. Can you tell us your name and where you're from and perhaps how you found the meeting? Looks like everyone that I've noticed so far has been here before, maybe one or two. Caleb, have you been here before? Okay,
Hello,
Salomia.
good evening.
Oh, go ahead.
Good morning. It's evening here. I'm from Holland. My name is Galip Gedik. I've been around the foundation for around 2 years, 1.5 years, and this is my second time joining this meeting. And I'm delighted to be here, and I'm very thankful for the message and for the teaching.
Yes, I've seen you in the Dutch meetings before, Caleb.
Yes.
So thank you.
Yes.
Thank you for your presence. Salomia, you have your mic open.
Yes. Hello, Mark. Hello, everybody. I'd like to ask Mr. Alex, if carbogen is the same with carbon 14, I'm wondering, because it's logical to be like this.
Oh, the question is carbogen and carbon 14 the same?
Yes, correct.
Carbogen is the plasmatic condition of carbon, because as you know, carbon is like coal. It's a solid. So the carbogen is a gas. But if we are looking at the periodic table of elements, the field focus point of carbon is carbon 12. Other than carbon 12 is an isotope. One of those isotopes is carbon 14. But there's a carbon 16, there's a carbon 10, and there's a carbon 8. So in general terms, all these other carbons and these other isotopes, they all constitute the generic term carbogen. So carbon 14 would be a carbogen, but is not the carbogen. There is no the carbogen. The carbogen refers to the plasmatic condition of the carbon. So in other words, when you're looking at the CO2 GANs, that comes from the carbogen. So the CO2 GANs is in the physical state. Does it come from, which isotope does it come from? So that depends on the reference point. That also depends on the environment. So it's the interaction of the reference point with the environment that dictates the quality, and I'm not saying good or bad quality. I'm just saying it dictates the quality of the CO2. But the unique characteristic of carbon 14 is that it, being in an isotope, is not visible and not tangible, and so therefore it has the capability of crossing over from the plasma state and the physical state, and has the unique characteristic of connecting that crossover point, this point of transmutation. And the reason for it is because of its position in terms of its relationship to the magnetical gravitational relationship. That particular point is the connection point. My point with this presentation is that that connection point can be in the physical reality exclusively, can be in the plasma reality exclusively, or can be in the transmutation point between the physical reality and the plasma reality, which we in our conventional science have not been able to enjoy these options. These are the new options which the plasma science is now offering to us. And it is doing that simply by understanding that there is a connecting force, there's a universal connecting force. And it is from that force that we can transcend these various dimensions. So we find that the universal community can connect in their plasma reality the same way as we connect in our physical reality. It's novel to me, and I'm just speaking from my own point of view, that the universal community may not have the capability of transmutating into our physical reality, just like we don't have the capability of transmutating from our physical reality to our plasma reality. Not to say that it's not possible, it's saying that we're not skillful enough. That's the point. And so as we go through the various classes, some people can go right through it like no problem at all. And then other people have to go through small, tiny incremental stages of knowledge to be able to put the whole picture together. And the reason for this is the way knowledge and memory manifest themselves in the physical reality. When we look at our central nervous system, the strengthening of the central nervous system is the rotating field around the myelin, is the myelin shaft. And so the more rotations we have, the more memory we have. And this is just part of learning. And so there have been disruptions. There have been toxicities for various reasons that have been introduced into our environment that are causing us to be, shall we say, debilitated. And so the plasma science is now allowing us to have the benefit of the energy exchange of the plasma reality and transmute that into our physical reality. This is a novel point of view. And I'm quite glad about that personally, because if you don't understand that point of view, understand this. Without that point of view, you're probably in a state of depression. Because if your viewpoint is only from the physical reality, then the only winners are the winners who have all the toys. And that makes everybody else the loser. That's a very depressing outlook. So what we have to find is that the top of the pyramid is supported by the rest of us. And so that is the reality. And that is the, shall we say, the brightness of the future. And it's very, very exciting to me, especially. So just understanding these connections and how they can transcend the various dimensions, and understanding how the rules are the same in all dimensions. Once you understand the basic rules, then you have the capability of growing in the most natural way possible. And what's wrong with that picture? There really shouldn't be any opposition to that picture. So thank you for your question. I hope I've answered it.
Thank you very much for your answer. May I ask you if nitrogen is carbon 14 is the same?
No, it's not.
Behave like
No, it doesn't.
carbon 14, or it is a mistake?
No, it's not a mistake. It is a plasmatic positioning. So if you change the field strength, then you change the susceptibility. So with the nitrogen 14, it becomes a catalytic converter, where you're converting oxygen and carbon. Whereas the carbon 14 is the connector through the dimensions.
In the plasma state.
Yes, yes, in the plasma state. Well, actually, there is a connection. You see this center connection here, the physical reality and the plasma reality? There's a connection. And so when we discussed GANS state way back in the basics, we found that GANS is a lie detector. It detects the emotional content of the participants. So the question immediately comes forward, if GANS is physical, and it is because you can see it and you can touch it, how does it react in an emotional way? And the emotion, you can't touch it, you can't see it, right? So this has a duality. It is in this GANS state of duality, and carbon 14 has the same characteristic. So in other words, if the carbon 14 has the connection that the GANS state has the connection between the physical reality and the plasma reality, then the GANS of any element in the periodic table of elements has this same characteristic. But We are organic, which means carbon-based. And now we know that the universe is organic. It's carbon-based. So the definition really becomes redundant. But it is specific to the fact that there is a connector. And it is this characteristic of being able to waffle through the physicality of carbon-12 and the plasma reality of carbon-14 that allows us to transcend these various dimensions. That's the key point.
Yes, thank you very much.
So the universal body enhancement spaceship unit must be using some carbon-14 or some sort of plasmatic transfer. Apparently the soul operates on this level. And we are a compressed universe, Mr. Kesh was saying. So there's a lot of carbon-14 in our body as well. He said if you step on a nail, you feel it instantly. This is the carbon-14 or the what's energizing the plasma in a way. There's
It
something very
behaves.
special about it. Yeah, if we look in the matter state, the carbon-14 decays to the hydrogen-14, but that's in the matter state. And we've
Okay,
all
Mark.
made it, he said. We've all made it before, but we've missed it.
It really is hard to see. Okay, so you know it's a harsh criticism, very accurate though. There's a feeding system, but the environment is a feedback system. So we have an adaptation to our environment. That adaptation capability is the same, whether it's in a plasma reality or in a physical reality. It's the same way. And it's the uniqueness of the carbon-14, which it can connect in the plasma reality and connect with the carbon-12, which is in the physical reality. So let me just rephrase that. The physical reality being the carbon-12, the plasma reality being the carbon-14, there's a universal connection right there. And you've gone through different dimensions. In other words, the dimensions constitute a range, and that range is the physical reality. So you know that in our physical reality, we can be a physical body, or we can be a soul traveler. We know that because we can go to sleep and we can wake up. And we can pinch ourselves, right? You can clasp your hands. So you know there's a structure, that within that structure, you know that there's an energy force, there's a vitality. So there's an essence. Well, the plasma reality has the same thing. The only difference is that you can't clench your fist and you can't touch it. And the other difference is that you have to take into account the environment. So if the one plasma is interacting with another plasma, then the inertia between those two plasmas is the plasma interaction, is the dynamic plasma interaction. And there is no impetus for it to be manifest into the physicality. So if the impetus to manifest into physicality is there, then you will transform from the plasma reality to the physical reality. So the question comes, do the universal community want to manifest into the physical reality? Not into this hooligan bill. I think their interest is low. And because we're not aware of the universal community, so our interest is also low. But the fact of the matter is, all of us are connected emotionally. And that emotional connection is transcending the plasma reality and the physical reality. So now what you have is you have a whole planet that understands the failure of our society the way it is, which is determined and created through our moral bankruptcy. That's not the way the universe works. That's just the way that we have chosen to work on this planet. And as a result of that choice, that we get to bear those consequences. And those consequences are extremely binding. But the uniqueness that I've tried to demonstrate with the game of musical chairs is, when does the gravitational convert into magnetical, and can it do so? Well, when you understand that there's no way to throw anything, so if you, out of sight, out of mind, oh yeah, well, that's sure, but it's out of your sight, it's in someone else's sight. So you may throw the garbage to your neighbor, so it's out of your tiny perfect world, but now your neighbor's looking at you and say, hey, you're throwing garbage in mine. Your garbage is in my dimension. And so this creates a point of conflict. So it's a rudeness, it's an ignorance, it's a lack of education, it's a lack of understanding. And we're all guilty of that because we're all products of this society on this planet. So now comes a new awareness. So it's not an awareness to, make us all feel bad, but it's to understand through the depth of the understanding and the application of that understanding. So if you are, it's like you talk to a vegan. How do you know that someone's a vegan? Because they tell you. You don't even have to ask them. They just say, hey, my name is so-and-so and I'm a vegetarian. Okay. And then you have these tree huggers. Okay. Well, look at it from the point of view of the tree. Does that tree want to be hugged by this guy? Really? Why do trees grow at a certain distance from each other? Because they create their own field of reference. And then we come in there and then we want to hug them. They don't need your physical hug. That's meaningless. Because you can go and hug them in the wintertime and the sap runs out of that tree and that tree becomes a physical shell of its existence in the summertime. So you're just basically hugging a form artifact without a soul. The soul has gone into the root. But in the springtime, the soul comes back. And the tree grows again. And another ring forms on the tree. Another ring, another game of musical chairs. And it becomes stronger and contributes. And it has a fulfillment of its soul. So when we start to understand that all these things have a soul, and it extends to, of all things, rocks, then we understand what a state of suspended animation is, or what we understand, like a betta fish, they'll just sit there in the water and pine for a female. Or you get a hibernation where a bear will go in a cave and in the winter and sleep all winter. Like we sleep for, let's say, 8 hours. What would it be like if we go to sleep for 3 months? We'd say we were in a coma. So is a coma a state of hibernation? Maybe it's a way for the emotional state to come to grips with the physical state and say, this is not working for my soul. There's a conflict, and we need to have a conflict resolution. When that conflict resolution comes into being, then the coma is finished. And then the soul engages with the physicality. So if we understand this process and we understand this connection, and then we understand the disconnection and that process. So there's a coming, there's a going, it's a two-way street. It's magnetical, it's gravitational. There's an attraction, there's a repulsion on all levels.
So when one
It's-
soul is trying to interact with another soul, they're using the carbon-14 communication and connection field of the carbon-14. I didn't think there would be something required like that, but maybe it is. He seems to say this is the line of communication that the soul operates on.
So this is a really important point. You are carbon-12. The person you're communicating to is carbon-12. Is your carbon-12 and their carbon-12 the same carbon-12? No, that's the problem. Our understanding, we call it carbon-12 generically, but each carbon-12 is different. We have 7 billion people on this planet. We're all different. So the interaction of the carbon with the environment is different because it carries different energies. So what we're just looking for is a common denominator, not the lowest common denominator. So the common denominator is the carbon-14 that is in the plasma state. That's how you communicate. The manifestation into the physicality is the dropping down of energy. So carbon-14 has more energy than carbon-12. 14 is more than 12. So to go into the physical state, it has less energy. It gets down into the carbon-12. So that's the manifestation of the physicality. Where does the other 2 carbon go? So those other 2 could manifest itself into water. 2 hydrogens and 1 oxygen is water. And that is the universal solvent. We're all about 75% water. Yeah. Are you making the connection?
The soul is. Why did you bring up Darwin again? Was it the idea of the stronger feeding the weaker? He's thinking the stronger eats the weaker. Wasn't he didn't he study species or an anthropologist of sorts? Why was
Yeah.
Darwin brought in again?
Well, I never had a chance to study him in depth. It's just, you know, the strongest, the survival of the fittest, right? So that's the mantra.
Okay.
Okay, so to not study, that would be the, you know, the generic conclusion. As I've studied him more, then I've found that there are a lot of characteristics and motivations that are behind that mantra that I find very disagreeable. And so that's why I brought it up, because the point is that if it's a theory, it only has to be disproven once to make it false. And so if we say that the survival of the strongest is the survival of the fittest, while the plasma science stronger feeds the weaker. So right then and there, boom, it's a done deal. We don't have to do any more exploration.
And when we look at rays and preemptics, those are straight lines, aren't they? They only have a directional movement, but they don't have any rotational until they start interacting or playing with the other kids or the other field.
Okay.
Maybe a field has a rotation and a direction. but not a ray or a preemptic. It just has a directional movement.
It
Is
has
that
to
your-
have a no, it has to have a rotation.
A ray?
Yeah. Think of a ray as a bullet. And you know that a bullet traveling down the barrel of a gun rotates. In American football, a quarterback will pass to a receiver. If he puts a spin on the ball, the trajectory of that ball will be true.
Okay, I just thought the rays and the preemptics just go in a straight sort of until they get to interact with something else. Then they
Yeah.
could, if they find a similar field or a similar strength, they can start combining perhaps and
Yeah, but you
rotating.
have to go from a point of a magravs. In order to create a magrav, you have to have the basic dimensions of transmission, transition, and transmutation. You have to have that rotating field. You can't contain that energy.
You
Okay, I
see it on
think
the
we have,
picture of a transmission of light, the picture of the second book.
Yes, that is correct, John. Mark, were you gonna bring me in?
no, yes, I say your mic was open, Ed. Thank you.
Yeah.
I-
No, I just had some insight on this in that the array of light is just a plasma that has decided to go somewhere for a short description. And if so, a plasma is a dynamic structure, but when it goes somewhere, it elongates. And the light, that's what the light is. It contains all of the components of the plasma, the three different matters, as Alex so often points out to us, but they're within an elongated structure, a light ray now. And those different components of the light manifest themselves depending on the environment that it passes through, and so forth and so on. But so there is kind of a rotating, spiraling nature to the ray. At least that's the way I have been led to believe by reading and listening. Does that make sense?
So then what would be the difference between a plasma and a ray if they're both rotating?
One is going somewhere. It's traveling across the universe to a destination, a point of energy that it has found a similarity to, and it is drawn to. The ray of light, the plasma, when it decides to travel somewhere, it becomes a ray. And that's the light beam.
Yeah, when it hits matter.
Well, when it hits a matter state, it depends on which matter it is, but yes, it converts into that matter, if that's the strength that it's going towards.
When a magnetic ray comes into the atmosphere, it generates light. When it hits a solid matter state, it generates the heat.
We have a number of inadvertent mics opening, at least during your presentation. Sorry about that, Alex. We tried to catch them as quickly as possible. But now it's time for asking questions. I don't know if someone would like to pose a question. We have some 40 odd or even mics here. Would
just
anyone
wanna-
like to open something up? Go ahead.
I just want to comment that Ed's description is absolutely beautiful, and it's just wonderful to see the contribution from all the knowledge seekers. When you have the tools of the terminology and you add that to the understanding, and you can start to put these concepts together, because we have to think in the terms of abstract, right? You know, what we have lived in our physicality. We have to understand that there's a plasma reality. So these words that we are using, which are nothing more than physical constructs of our physicality, they convey ideas. So the ideas are part of this plasma energy flow. So to explain how this is happening, the only reference point that we can have is in our physicality. And what is so beautiful is that our physicality has many, many examples of this. And then just, you know, so many times, why does this happen? Oh, I don't know. I don't know. Well, I don't know because I don't have a basis for knowledge. So now we've incorporated the basis of knowledge. And so it becomes very easy for Ed to explain. You have two plasmas, and then you have an interaction of these two plasmas. So look at the direction of flow. On the left-hand side, you're looking at the top of the rotating field. In the center of the structure of light, you're looking at the side view of the rotating field. Where's that top? The top is on the right. Where's the bottom? The bottom is on the left. So on the left, we're looking at the top. On the right, we're looking at the bottom, destination. Top, source, bottom, destination. In between, we're looking at the side view. On the right is the top going to the bottom. On the left is the bottom coming from the top. Magnetical, gravitational interaction. It's a two-way street. And the target shooting is perfect. That's why the raindrops always fall in the center of the field.
Would anyone else like to come in here? I see Christian is here. Thank you for that wonderful video you've produced. I guess it'll be available to all of us, hopefully in the near future. He's looking for a couple of voiceovers, and we suggested Leanna. She has a beautiful voice, and Andreas is working with Dr. Kern. No, I was just thinking that the plasma, when it wants to travel, it converts into an elongated cylindrical type of motion, and then upon arrival, it returns back into this round plasma. Would we call that the neutron or just the plasma? Going from a
Both, Mark.
circular to an elongated and then back upon arrival to a circular.
Exactly. Yes.
Ed? Is there something?
No, I was just going to say you're exactly right. But then you brought in the neutron, and I don't know about that. It depends on the interaction, I guess, of what it's going to and when it gets there. Because it's always going somewhere, like Alex says.
Yeah, but you know, that's a really good point, Ed, because when you look at the basis of the hydrogen, there is no neutron. It's only made of electron and a proton. So of all the periodic table of elements, hydrogen is the only one without a neutron.
All right, are there other questions or points anyone would like to bring up? I think there are many people here who studied the plasma science who may have a question and don't feel your question is not appropriate because it's too simple or everyone knows the answer to it. Perhaps we can open something else up about it.
I was wondering something, if I may. When talking about the different dimension of interaction, when the gravitational has to give to the magnetical, how can I make this more concrete in my understanding? Because now I'm more understand it with words. If you may elaborate on that.
The only way that you can make it more concrete is to make it more gravitational. That is the essence of concreting. And so in your memory, there is a rotating field around your neuron, your nerve. And in that rotating field, the more rotations it has, the stronger that field is. And being stronger, it can retain more information. And so the actual growth is memory retention of learning. And so that manifests itself into this myelin sheath around the nerve. And so that is a physical manifestation of that. It's now question is, how do you take that knowledge and put it in a plasma state? Well, this is the part of the growth. You can transcend now from a physicality into a plasma state the same way that you do when you go to sleep at night. This is literally what you're doing. Your body is physically going to sleep, but your soul is going into the dream state. And not only that state, that is only just one state. There are other states. So, depending on our skill level. And then in the morning you wake up, you come back into your physical state. So that is your concrete evidence. In other words, that is your physical evidence that you are able to leave your physicality and come back to your physicality. So that part is known and has always been known, but not been explained. But what is new, really, for all of us now, I would say, is that we can literally go to another environment and transmutate into another physicality. And the reason that this would come up is because if we can transmutate from our soul into our physicality, are we restricted to only doing this on Earth? Because the Earth is not the only physical thing in our universe, and we know that because when we look up, we can see other planets. So the question really is, well, let's put it this way, what the question is not. Can we transmutate on the planet Mars? So the answer is yes, we can. Okay, why did we not transmutate on planet Mars? Because we wanted to transmutate to planet Earth. We are part of the process. That's what we wanted to do. And then for many of us, we get here and we see what it's like, and we can't get out of Dodge fast enough. However, one piece of attitude change is my request. Understand that we are in heaven. Because wherever we are, that's where heaven is. So all
So
of us together
this is
can make a change.
this is the idea that we're sort of chameleons where we can operate in the two dimensions simultaneously.
More than two dimensions, because the basis of the Maghreb is 3 dimensions, and we are none of those 3 dimensions. So we're in the 4th dimension, but that's only our soul of the body. Then we have the soul of the man, that's in a different dimension, and then we have the creator. And that's
So
what
this
we're
is
doing.
playing with the carbon 12 in the matter state and the carbon 14 on the soul level. Is that
Touchdown!
we're going to be able to realize this ability and actually consciously operate in it?
Touchdown! You win. A+.
I like it. And the guy in soccer when he says goal.
Thank you so much for the elaborate explanation, sir. Well, when Mark was mentioning about the chameleon and the duality, it popped in my mind that Sir had once mentioned that I'm talking about Sir Keshe. He once mentioned that words are all blah blah blah, and it kind of gave me the impression that what we're all doing right now still, and I shouldn't say all because maybe not all of us, but at least I, on the more conscious level, we're learning and exchanging with words and with thoughts. But is it true that there is a, I mean, I know you can communicate through soul level, through dreams, but how can we communicate? Is it true that the next level, like the better level of communicating, is not with words and with thoughts? That it's very redundant and very it doesn't do justice on what's communicable. Am I correct in thinking that? And if so, how is this? How can I set a step towards this? If you think you can give me a tip.
No, you don't need a tip. That is brilliant, what you just said. Absolutely brilliant, because now you understand that in the higher energy state, you can do more. You can be more, do more. So you cannot, this is why they say a picture is worth 1,000 words, isn't it? If you know, how long does it take for you to articulate 1,000 words? But how long does it take for you to see a picture? So obviously, there's more information conveyed in a picture. Well, even beyond that, there's more information conveyed in a thought. So all of these are different energy levels. And because these are all non-visible, non-tangible, we say, well, that's in a plasma state. And so to differentiate between the physical state, which is the transmutation of the thoughts into words, and we can use these words because we have mouths to speak and ears to hear. But if you're on the soul level and you don't have a mouth and you don't have an ear, you're not deaf and dumb. You don't need that because you have other capabilities, more efficient capabilities. So when you say, oh, I like you because I like being with you, or I like you because I want to eat you. So if I say I like you, you really don't know what I'm saying. You are thinking what you think I'm saying. But on a universal level, on a soul level, you'll know exactly what I'm saying. And if I say, well, I like you, and you say, well, go ahead and like someone else, and we'll see you later. And this is where the plasma science, the plasma field creates a barrier, right? Because now we have a common denominator. You want to eat, and I don't want to be eaten. So we have a common desire to stay apart. But if I enjoy your company, then I have a common denominator to be attracted and come together.
Right, and apparently
So,
this
yeah.
zero time communication is built into all of us. We've just forgotten how to use it. So we're reviving this understanding of the ability to zero time communicate without actually going anywhere or, past the length of your voice shouting.
So Mark, until, we got into these classes, I had a lot of difficulty because as I was learning these skills about listening to the intent and not listening to the words, then when someone was lying to me, I found it, I couldn't turn around and say, hey, buddy, you're telling me a lie. Okay, because they would, be upset. So I had to pretend that I believed them. And this was an inconvenience to me. So, I had to sort this one out. And the way I sorted out is I tried to avoid liars. And I try and avoid them as early as possible because it just becomes a mutilation of my soul, abuse of my soul, where I have to pretend that I believe them for the sake of their beliefs, where I knew very well that they were lying. Why do I have to pretend? They're the ones that are lying. So this is the unfortunate truth. When I say unfortunate, it means that when you're living in a society where everyone has grown accustomed to lying, then, you adapt to that. And you just say, well, you're on planet Earth, so therefore your culture is a lying culture. So you say that you're going to be here in half an hour and you come 2 hours later, I'm not going to be upset because I knew you weren't going to be there in half an hour. Right? But on a soul level, you need to be more precise. And
I
this
know
is
Mr.
where
Kesh said he was in London recently, and I think he said he was sharing something about this carbon 14, but he asked the person not to share it. And I thought, gee, that's a little odd. I was wondering if it was Kay or someone else. But maybe I misunderstood what was said there, but I think he was
are
explaining
both-
something. Hello?
They are both here.
Yeah, well, I don't think he was explaining it using musical chairs.
No. You have your mic open. Is there something you wanted to say or add?
That's just accidental.
No problem. Nice to hear your voice.
Thank you.
And thank you for all your support as well. We're going to have a great
Can I-
class. Oh, yes, come in, Joel.
Hi everyone, good evening. A lot to speak about carbon 12 and carbon 14 and whatever. But what is amazing when Mr. Cass said, all of you are already done it, but you do not notice it was. Anyway, you need to think about it.
Yeah, yeah.
You know it?
We've already made it, he said. You've already made the carbon 14. You didn't see it.
CO2.
CO2 or the CH3, because he said that CH3 has the carbon 12 and it's very close enough and it gives like the carbon 14. And if you use the amino acids out of the CH3 and somehow introduce them within yourself, perhaps you can open up a certain line of communication or energize those amino acids and reduce the amount of food you need to take. And he said this could extend life on this planet for centuries. I guess all life, not only the human life.
You know it or you think you know it?
No, I only think I know it.
Okay. Can you open the whiteboard, please?
Right away.
By the way,
Do you
No,
have it,
come in.
Alex? Thank you.
Coming right up. How's that?
thank you. It's very white. Thank you.
You racist.
Thank you. You know, guys, in your test time, when you get energy and it goes to your intestines, and in the end it goes to a bigger intestine and it go out. Okay, so when the energy that is going in this way, it's a package of energy, yes, or packages of energies. Let's say million. When it goes in this way, every sector here, it takes from this package of energy, which you already consumed and you already sent to the intestine to be taken by the intestines, okay, to the lymph. All of you understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
As one time in the teaching, Mr. K said, the soldiers, they said we don't have enough food, and the general said, oh, what can I do? I will tell you something. He picked up a bowl of ice and he told them, stand all of you in a line from the bigger to the smaller. And he said to the first one, take this ball of ice, put it in your hand until you cannot carry it anymore, you deliver it to the second one. So he gave the first one, it took some 2 minutes, and then he cannot hold anymore. He gave to the second one, to the third one, to the fourth one, to the sixth one, until he become to the last one, which all this ice is no more. After this one, they didn't receive anything. Why? Because if we say this package of energy, it's have been taken by all of these until it reach the last one he can take from, and after that no one received anything. So this bowl of ice is this food what you are eating, yes? So here in the beginning of your intestines, this is release of energies all the time until we come to a point where there is no more to feed, to give. Finish. But still there is energy. Which one? If no one, this is a matter state, huh? You think? But in a plasma, there is a plasma which is you do not see, because it do not manifest itself nearly in the matter state. Like the ray which comes from far distance, when it interacts with the universes and planets and whatever, every planet takes from it to the other converted to the other, converted to the other, until it becomes to a point which Mr. Cash called it the God particles. It's there, but the strength of it is very, very strong. You know, in the plasma, when it is heavier, it manifests, it gives. But when it is lighter, lighter and lighter and lighter, so this area where it's come to interact with, it goes more fine, and this is more speedy because he release, which is keeping him lower. So this package of energy, which is started from here as a ray, every time when there is interaction and some of this field, which is do not carry on with this one or which one interact with, it goes in another direction because it is not belong to this one because didn't interact, and it do not belong anymore to this one because do not rejoin. So it is higher in reality from the original. So if you speak about carbon-14, you need to understand how you create carbon-14, where you create it. And once I asked you guys where you create the B12. In your body. And if B12, you need it all the time or in certain moments. So if you create carbon-14, do you need it all the time or in certain moments of interaction? And he said, it do not goes to a decay because he do not need it. It's not the characteristic of it to go a decay. Which one go decay? It's carbon-12, carbon-14 in the nitrogen, or carbon-16 as oxygen. This one which goes to a decay. But some, you know, as just you said, Alex, about 7 billion is different. Yes, we are human. Yes, but there is some of a human. They have a special ability which is not available to you or another one. So if you call yourself you are carbon-12, yeah, okay, but some of this carbon-12 as a human, it have a special characteristic which behave, let's say, as a carbon-14. Let's say this is just a comparison. So you think that you have it and you are working with it, but in reality, you missed it. And this will be continuing next week. Thank you very much. Any question? I hope there is no question. Thank you very much.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear in the middle. I had an important call. I will hear.
Who
in the
called you?
recording. Sister-in-law from
Okay.
Texas.
What he told you? It's not bad.
they're going to country.
Okay. Do you have a
Um,
question?
No, I didn't hear your total teaching, but I will listen to listen in the recording.
Okay, my pleasure.
And oh, I will find out. It's okay. Thank you, Jalal bhai,
You're welcome.
brother Jalal. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark, Alex.
Well, thank
Thank you,
you.
John.
And I'm understanding the CH3 is close enough to the carbon-14 to use. And by making it and using the amino acid, it has that iron link built in or binded to it in a way. And therefore it doesn't need to deplete itself. It takes, it holds, and it gives, but it doesn't decay. So this is how the life is extended, through the powering up of the amino acids, your Kohan, that doesn't need to discharge and recharge. Apparently, I guess it's like a battery in a way. If you constantly have to lose energy and recharge it, the life of the battery doesn't last as long as if it could hold it or constantly feed it. So I'm making a plate now, and I'm going to make some more CH3. I had a question on the CH3. When you're using the wire mesh, and if you cut the mesh that the iron is exposed, in other words, it's all zinc coated, but if you cut a piece out of it, unless you use one of the ends and sort of roll it in a way where there's no iron exposed, does this make a difference in making your CH3? If any iron is exposed by cutting it into a certain shape that you could fit your container, let's say, would it make a difference, or does it all have to be covered with zinc and then the fields interact with the iron fields without exposing them in the water, let's say? Any ideas from anyone?
So I can answer that question this way, Mark. I can't tell you what the difference is. I can tell you that there is a difference. Every time you cut something, every time you bend something, there's a difference. Every time you do something at a different time, there's a difference. So all these things come into account. What you need to do is to figure out what the significance of this. So for instance, if you took into account everything in the universe, you would be forever busy taking everything into account. You'd never be able to do anything. So you have to balance off doing everything and doing nothing. And so, like a lot of us say that, we're doing nothing when we're resting, but 70 trillion cells are busy, and so we're busy. So it's us as a soul who have enlisted the services of the other souls, the cell souls, to take care of that business. And this is where we have to understand that when we want to dominate physically over our soul, that we are dealing with, first of all, a lower energy level, and that this lower energy level has already been taken care of, because each cell takes care of its own business, because each cell is a magrav and has its own soul. And then collectively, all of these cells work together as a magrav, which we call the body, and the body takes care of the business. And so the fact of the matter is that the cells and the body can do a far better job than we can, because our goal is to provide a magrav condition of balance. That's our goal, and that follows the universal law. And so by giving that decree, that moral decree, to every component of our body, that's all we need to do. Once we have the ethos, then the rest of the souls follow that ethos. In other words, the soul doesn't have to micromanage. The soul simply delegates to the other souls. And how many souls are there? So this is where the plasma souls interact, and we follow the rules of the universe. So how much do we take into account? And how much do we not take into account? And so sometimes we overcommit to taking things into account, which prevents us from doing enough to complete our work. And I think we're all guilty of that because, well, it's just the way it is. So how skillful are we? That's the question. So you find some people can do more with less, and we find that people put demands on us because we're capable. So we end up having to do more and more with less and less until we do everything with nothing. But that nothing is really the non-visible plasma reality, because this is what you know. If the food source provides us 20% of our energy, and through Jalal's description here, his beautiful description of how the energy is transmuted, 80% is not coming from this diagram.
Right. I thought it was very interesting, Mr. Kesh, referring to us as just a compressed universe in a way.
Yeah,
So it's a new way to look at ourselves.
The reason I bring that up is because for the longest period of time, I was in the health food, industry, so to speak. Well, we're all in the health food industry, healthy and unhealthy. It's all part of the health industry. But anyway, the point is we would always emphasize and say, oh, well, this is the key thing. You got to have this, and then that would be fine. Well, if that was true, there wouldn't be that much diversity. So, when we talk about as knowledge seekers, we talk about, say, 4 basic ganses, and when we look at the universal enhancement unit with 2 orders of magnitude, in other words, 400 ganses, and all operating on a non-physical state, which means it's operating at a higher order of magnitude, well, you understand the difference. And how many things do you take into account? Now, what happens if Mr. Kesh were to decide to put 1,600 components in there? And I'm not saying that he hasn't. I'm just saying if he were to put 1,600 components in there, which is, 400 times 4, would that mean he would last? It would take 4 times longer to develop. Yeah, it would. So, with the 2-year delay that we've had because of the pandemic, we've gone through progress. But at some point in time, that progress may continue, but that progress may manifest itself into a course of action. And so that course of action has manifested itself into a visual enhancement, vertical enhancement, horizontal enhancement, universal enhancement, and projected delivery system to inner and outer space. So at some point in time, that has to be manifest, but the research continues.
Oh yeah, he said, go back to your boxes and see what you've missed. So apparently there's quite a bit that was missed. I was going to ask him, somebody asked me to ask Mr. Kesh about the signing of the contracts. I think he's finalized the manufacturing in Romania, but I was wondering about this other company as well. He was just here for a moment, but he's not now. So very nice manufacturing in Romania with perhaps 1,000 jobs, plus or minus some. So this will be one of the major manufacturing facilities. So beautiful gift to Romania. And I'm sure they're watching it or are aware of it. pretty much. Our knowledge seekers.
Mark, I'm going to change the picture. Is that okay?
Sure. He's gonna continue. Can we save it for next week? He said he'd like to continue it next week.
Okay, no problem. Take it out.
Did you want to continue now, Jalal,
What?
on this picture? You said you were going to continue something next week.
I think all of you understand. I hope.
Right now, if the body has enough energy in it, none of this conversion will take place. It will just get rid of it, won't it? If it has the energy it already needs within the body, and let's say you had a second meal on top of your first meal, and therefore none of this would happen, right? It would just try to get rid of it because it doesn't need it.
We are forcing a lot of things, needed or not needed. That's why we are dying so fast.
Mm-hmm. Yep,
So-
this conversion. But he was talking about that with the Chinese and how much they eat the same for breakfast and lunch and dinner, huge plates of it. But apparently, and of course, he mentioned the green tea in that question. But if the body has the energy it needs, I think he gave the example of the bananas before. If your body only needs the energy of one banana and you eat 10, the rest get pushed through without absorbing any of its energies because you're satisfied with the one. If that's my understanding.
Um, Okay.
Jalbhai, say it. You want to say something? Say it.
yeah, I want to bring it in a question that bring you to think, you know, to I do not want to just split it like this. And look, we always have neutron, proton, electron. This is especially in our universe.
Except the hydrogen. Yeah,
Hydrogen have a proton and electron,
right. No
and
neutron.
they behave as a neutron. No. It's all it's one. It's no different. But there is a packages. There is a packages. Let's say I will make a small work here. A mother as a neutron and a daughter, let's say, and a brother. If I want to put them in this respect, proton, neutron, proton, electron, in this respect, I will do like this. I will put the mother as the neutron, the brother as a proton, and the daughter as electron. Why I make like this? The sun and the what you call it? The girl, the daughter is the electron. Why? Because the daughter itself in the future, she will become itself a neutron. And it can give out proton, electron. This is in respect, you know, like something to think about. It's the same thing. There is a neutrons which they do not goes to a decay. It's only release energy, but they do not go to a decay. And this is what you really want to look for. The first,
Sorry.
did anyone call you?
But this neutron must be taking energy, yes?
They're cycling. They're cycling.
No, it have nothing to do with taking or, but I am saying
Okay,
you need to look for at a work that this neutron do not goes to a decay, because it is from his interaction he is only giving energy out without going to a decay, unless there is something special happen really for him to go to a decay. Where we find this one in our work? Isn't that, let's say,
carbon
the son,
14.
the father? He cannot go decay. He cannot give. He's a neutron, but he cannot decay. But
Well,
he give.
Or the iron in the CH3 when it's made, he says it's self-feeding.
What iron CH3? CH3 you can do only with iron, and this is the problem. You know, we don't think more. You need a difference of 3. What you are using, my dear? You are using a copper. 59. Okay, if I bring you a material of 5,990, can you make me CH3, please? Yes, you can. But we do not go with our understanding to another dimension to make CH3. It is the interaction of 2 plasma give you 6. Interaction with extra plasma give you 3. But this 3 cannot make a neutrons because it's a weak enough. You see, weak enough. So they will cover the second in command. And the first command is the neutron. Second in command is the proton and electron. So, but this CH3 now, what you are doing with this one, it's higher and higher and higher and higher from the CH3, which is you are using copper and iron. And this is very weak materials, my dears. There is higher source of material. Okay, take gold. Take gold instead of copper. Here is gold. You have 198. I cannot use my board because if I use it, I will be out. So this 198 gold. What kind of material you need to make carbon? Anyone? Anyone knows? Anyone?
Nano coating copper and gold. Yeah.
I'm saying I want carbon. Carbon 6. Carbon, what you call it? 12. I want to make C. The first, okay. Oh, wait. This is all complicated here. I have C here. I have C here. This one here, I made CH3 by using nano coated copper and galvanized zinc. I create CH3. First interaction, I create 6. The second interaction, I make 3, and this will become 3 hydrogens. So now I have the second one. I have the first one is gold, 198. I want to make carbon. Can someone please tell me what kind of material I put against to give me 6?
Whatever weight is 192 or 204.
Thallium is 1.
What is it, John?
Thallium.
Well, whatever name.
It's 204.
So I nano coated the other one, and I put it against the gold. But now what I need, look, now what I need to give me the second interaction 3. Come, you said it, guys. Think.
Platinum, Jalal.
Platinum 200,
Yes.
200, yes, I think 201.
Platinum is 105.
195.
Yes.
Okay, 195. But here, no, you don't have, because you used 204, the bigger one. As John said, you used 204.
If not, it's iridium. Iridium is
Whatever.
197, 198.
Whatever. So you need to bring a material which is the difference is 3 between gold and this one, and then you galvanized this 3 or this material with something give you the difference of 6. Understand? Because here, when I used copper, I used against it iron in the beginning. And this iron between copper and iron is 3. So I galvanized the iron with zinc. So inside the difference is 3. Outside the difference is 6. So the first interaction goes to the neutrons. I will have 6. This one will go out. Not anymore zinc. It will take the iron now, the second interaction. But unfortunately, there is no more neutrons. All is occupied. So it will add to the second one. The second one is 3. And if you are smart enough to have another material which is inside, whatever is inside, this will give you a third interaction, and no matter what is inside here, because you are dealing now with the plasma environment. So if you have neutron, now this one will be proton, and this the second one, the third one will be electron. Can you imagine what kind of you will have here? Don't stick with one. We until now we stick only with copper. My God, nano-coated copper. So since 10 years, nano-coated copper. We didn't went even nano-coated zinc. We didn't went to the iron. We didn't went to the other, as we said here, platinum or silver or whatever. It's a huge difference. So your carbon 12, which is a sole connector, my dear friends, this one do not goes to a decay. The equal for carbon 14 in the amino acid is the, when you create an amino acid here, from carbon 14, it goes to nitrogen in the matter state, because this one, it have special interaction originally coming from, he give to the oxygen 16 and he give to the carbon 12, so it can goes in the matter state. It can goes to the matter state, so that's why he goes as a neutron, nitrogen, sorry. And if you look in the nitrogen, what is the characteristic of the nitrogen? Is it a staple? Look at it in the Wikipedia. Anyway, even with that, CH3 or CO2 or COO, we stick only with copper and zinc plate, and this is all. But this is very tiny step, very tiny step. And I remind you with something. Don't forget when Mr. K is saying the first inception. When the plasma release from this part here, this is a field, you know, this square, this is a field. From this field of interactions, which is do not belong here and here, it goes as a ray. It is very high and very strong, because this is higher than which is coming in. So that's why you need to look to the first rays, which is, he said, what you call first inception. Why it's first inception? do not belong.
Jalal, is that why when the raindrops hit the water, the first wave is the strongest?
In the plasma we are speaking, it's not necessary like this. In the plasma, it could be, you know, like what the gases, what we eat. The last thing you get the B12. Where you get the B12? In the beginning of your intestine. You know, like it's like a diamond. It's a diamond which is covered with all these sorts of things. You polish it, polish it, polish it, polish it. Take from it, take from it, take from it, like the onion, until you go to the main one, to the real one, the fine shape. And this is in the diamond structure. And why you don't find a lot of diamonds? Because there is no, it's not always this first conceptions come together as a packages. It need a special rotation. It need a special point of Earth. Maybe Earth in a special place which gathered this energy to interact in special point. You know, there is a lot in it. Okay, so think please. When he is using the iron, the galvanized iron, don't limit yourself in this only. You can make a lot, especially if you have the capability of doing all these galvanized things and different kinds of elements. If you make the carbon out of 59, it's nothing. But now, I don't think you need any more materials. Okay, you can do it with the plasma. You can call up whatever you want. Still, you will have the carbon and the oxygen and nitrogen and hydrogen, but in different strength. In the public teaching, when he was teaching us about the hydrogen and deuterium and tritium, anyone remember in the public teaching? This hydrogen, if you can create after what you do with the CH3, and now you know how to do that, do it with another string and create from this 15, you take one hydrogen out of CH3, do it from, let's say, go heavier, higher in this, go to the other one, take from CO2, create the condition to release a hydrogen, go to the CO, go to the gold, go to the silver. And you will create a hydrogen. Let's say, what is the difference between this hydrogen which created from CH3 and this hydrogen which created, let's say, from gold? 100% different. Originally, all of them came from one, but different environment created this one. A special environment created this one, and this is what you need. Okay. Any question? I hope Celine, she have a call. Okay.
No, I don't have any call.
All right.
Jalal bhai, I first time when I make the GANs, the CO2,
Yeah.
long time ago, it came black. So I thought I made something wrong. So I throw those in the backyard.
Wait. What you said? First time you made CO2,
Yeah,
it
and
become
it
black.
yes, it was black.
You,
So
you mean the coil or the plate it released
no,
this
the
blackness?
GANs was black. The GANs was black.
The GANs was black.
Yes,
What you put?
zinc and copper and LED light, battery. That's it.
Okay.
So
And this battery 1.4 1.5
yeah,
volt.
the
Yes?
old battery. Yeah, old battery.
Are you sure it's old?
Yes, it was old. And then I throw those in the backyard because I was scared. Well, I made something wrong. So after that, I made a lot of GANs, different kinds of GANs, CO2, CS3,
Okay.
gold
Wait.
GANs.
Well, let's stick with this blackness. What you done?
Yeah.
Why you throw it?
Mr. Cash used to say the GANs should, the CO2 GANs will be white.
Okay, because you are new, I think here. Mr.
The
Cash from
long time ago.
Okay.
I'm following him from the like beginning.
Okay. Do you remember when he said do not throw anything?
Yeah, after that. After that, I already did. After that, he said, don't throw anything.
Wait. You know what?
Yeah.
You do not. When you go and you put all your work to
Yeah.
make to enter the world of plasma, he said you do not throw anything from the first inception to the baby, to the man, to the woman, to the community in this respect.
Yeah, it's part of me in the earth, in my backyard.
So I cannot tell you what you've done. I know what you've done, and unfortunately you've thrown it away. And normally you do not need to throw it because summon what you done.
Wait.
It's I cannot say I cannot say, but
I can understand.
you in one way of in the work you will need it 100%. You are very beautiful and very good in what you done because you need it in this specific. So nothing is wrong. Mr. K said never. He said in the plasma nothing is wrong, but do it for your expectation. That's different.
Okay.
You need the COO and you create let's say aluminium. You need aluminium and you create iron. But you create something.
Yes.
Unfortunately, you throw it away.
It's okay.
But
And then,
but this what you create in a place in the plasma.
It was important.
It's very important.
Okay.
This is the question I asked before I went sick. If you remember, in the Brazilian team. And Monday, tomorrow, come to the Brazilian team and I will tell you what you done.
Not now.
Yeah. If there is no questions or someone I would like to add, maybe.
Maybe I made the fuel from the flying machine.
Everything can relate it to the flying machine. Everything can relate it to the magram. Everything can relate it to everything because it can behave as a gravitational and it can behave as a magnetic.
I
And
didn't.
it have source of energy. You enter the world of plasma.
Yes, and
So
I'm gonna say
everything is
anything.
count. Everything count, and everything is have. You know, a lot of people, they do not know what they have when they have. What kind of knowledge they have? They enter a different world. You know, all of us, we say we want to go to space. Okay, the first time you enter this world of the plasma, you went and you put caustic, and you know, you made your nanocoating. You are already in this space.
Yeah,
But if we don't see,
but I'm in space. I know that.
yeah, you know that, and you throw them.
It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. It is with me. I made
It's
it.
learning process, no problem.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not worried about that. And then after that, I made CH3, CO2, different white one, and then gold gams. I don't know it happened or not.
Yeah,
It came.
sorry, you remind me of something. Wait a minute. Mr. Cash here. Mr. Cash, can you please answer question?
What do you want to know? Good evening. I stayed out of it up to now.
I wanted to be out of it. Good evening, Mr. Cash. The CH3, do we allow to make the CH3 now, or still not?
Yes, we said about a year ago you can start playing with CH3.
Okay. Okay, thank you. That's all.
Thank you very much. You got to understand, you explained a lot of things, Jalal. Actually, we're very close to the knowledge and understanding, but there is a point that you got to, I mean, you're not a physicist, but as a what I call ground level knowledge seeker, you understand the technology very well.